Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, after 8 years of marriage, Opie and his wife visit his estranged mother and detestable stepfamily. The meeting turns chaotic when the stepfather and stepbrother make inappropriate advances towards the wife. Later that night, he discovers his wife cheating with the stepfather. Devastated, he leaves with his mother, files for divorce, and severs ties with his wife. The story serves as a cautionary tale against infidelity's destructive consequences. Now let's get into the story. After being married for 8 years, my wife and I were actually invited to my mom's house. She was married to the most horrible man in existence, my stepfather. They had an offspring from hell named Lester. Lester was already 20 by the time we were invited to their house. For the purpose of story flow, I'll sometimes refer to both of them as steps. When I was still living with them, Lester and I never spoke. It was like he saw the goodness in who I was and was allergic to it. All he ever did when we were younger was break stuff or get into trouble and then blame me. He had it out from me from the beginning, and I assumed it was because of who his father was. My stepfather never tried to develop a relationship with me. All he ever did was tell me he was in charge, and I needed to fear him. Since Lester was his little minion, he used him as an extension of himself. So it had been a very long time since I saw my own mother and my wife of 8 years. Never met any of my family. On the way there, I warned her that my stepfather and stepbrother were the worst people you'd ever meet, and she shouldn't feel compelled or forced to communicate with them at all. She sincerely listened to my warning, like the good girl she was. I wasn't worried at all about her being unable to handle a little social awkwardness or even some rude comments. She was a good wife, and for all I knew, my steps had changed for the better in the past decade. We arrived safely at their house, which looked exactly the same as when I left. The introductions were awkward. The steps both looked my wife up and down without hiding the fact that they were checking her out. They barely greeted me. My mom was the one attempting to have a normal social gathering. She brought dinner out on the table where we all had to sit across from each other. The men stared at my wife like she was a television show. I asked them to stop staring at her, and that's when some yelling started. My stepdad said that I was the guest here and he could look wherever he wanted. My stepbrother said she deserved better than me, but trying to lessen the magnitude of what he said. Because of my mother's reaction. I don't know how, but my mom recovered from this exchange smoothly. I think I just missed her a lot and longed for this visit to go smoothly and peacefully. Plus, I felt like my wife and I were safe. I certainly didn't expect what was going to happen. Late that night, I woke up in the middle of the night in my sleeping bag on the living room floor. My wife wasn't on the couch anymore. I looked around and checked the bathroom, but still couldn't find her. Now I was groggy and growingly concerned. I didn't like that she was missing. With my terrible steps in the same house, I decided to check my parents' bedroom very quietly, and I only saw my mom sleeping. I checked Lester's room a little less quietly and found the scene of a nightmare. My wife was having intimate with my stepfather. I wish this was just a nightmare, but it was actually happening. My mom ran in to see what was wrong, and she saw everything too. She walked straight over to slap the hell out of my stepdad repeatedly. He actually fell over. Then she ran off and slammed the door of the bathroom. I felt so horrible. My mother shouldn't have had to see it, but these bastards didn't even care. Then I looked at my wife and demanded to know why she did this. She just sat on the bed covering her face. She started shaking like she was sobbing, and she looked up with her ugly cry, face to mouth. Sorry to me, this didn't make any sense at all. The respectable and kind wife I knew was gone. I told my mom to come with me. We packed our stuff and went back to my house, leaving my cheating wife with the steps. My mom lived with me while we both filed for divorce. She was a wreck just as much as I was, but we actually did bond and have good times together for the first time since I was really young. Before I knew it, she was making jokes about us going club hopping together. Prior to our first court date, my wife got a ride back to our neighborhood by paying for a long Uber drive. When she showed up at my door, I was very surprised and unhappy to see her. I told her I had nothing to say to her, she just needed to show up to court. She got on her knees and begged me to let her in. She just needed to get some of her stuff and figure out where to go. She hadn't been able to charge her phone for a while and told me that it wasn't long before the steps started treating her like a prisoner. I told her I would never understand why she agreed to go in that room and cheat on me. Then I slammed the door in her face and locked it. She would have no mercy or communication from me in court. My mother got alimony from my stepfather and continued living in my house. I stayed with her for a while, but once the divorce was final, I let her rent my house cheap while I found a new place to call my home. I believed in keeping close to my mother, but not that close. I needed to be independent and remain an eligible bachelor if I was to find a woman of equal quality. I got settled into my house really well before allowing any women to come over. I never saw or heard from my ex. She failed to show up to court for a divorce. I never step ever again. But I did find out that Lester was sent overseas in the army after his dad died in a construction work accident. It doesn't sound like a very happy life, and that's all I'll sum them up to. I'm happy with where I ended up after losing my wife of 8 years. I hope my story stops people from, because it causes mass destruction and pain. Hopefully more for the cheater than the victim, though. Today's second story. In this story, Obi discovered his wife's cheating through missing security videos at her massage parlor. After consulting her stepbrother, he confronted her, leading to divorce. He filed for alimony, won, and established a new life. The wife faced financial struggles and lost customers after the revelation. He now focuses on his YouTube channel and emphasizes the importance of loyalty and respect in relationships. Now let's get into the story. My wife, 38, and I, 41, got married on May 5, 2015. She was the owner of a massage parlor. Before we got married, she would have to get up close and personal with male and female customers alike. I was surprised. My wife had cameras in the massage rooms, but it was legal as long as the cameras were visible. She said she felt better having everything recorded in case, and anyone tried to do anything weird or anyone tried to claim she touched them inappropriately. At the end of each night, she would store the video in an archived folder in case she ever needed to defend herself. I would help out in the business sometimes, but it was always upfront and taking out the trash. She showed me how to move the camera recording to the archived folder, and I did it for a couple of nights. I was glad I could help her, so it was one less thing she had to do. After I got used to doing it for a while, she had me stop. But that was far from the strangest thing she started doing. She started sleeping with her phone under her pillow and definitely on silent. I never heard that thing make a sound ever again. I wondered how she knew when someone tried to reach her business, but she probably knew because she was always looking at her phone unless she was giving a massage. She also tried to give me reasons why she didn't need me to work, or better yet, why I didn't want to work. I started to feel pretty hurt and actually asked her why she was pushing me away. She was really surprised I even noticed her treating me differently. Maybe her judgment was cloudy due to a fair fuck. This is when I really started wondering if something was going on. I showed up without telling her while she was in the massage rooms. I dismissed the receptionist, telling her I was there to relieve her lunch break. I opened up the archived file and scrolled through the dates. There were 2 dates within the past 3 weeks that weren't there. I scrolled back as far as the prior year. And the only 2 dates that were missing were within the past 3 weeks. So it was very unusual that any dates would be missing, and the fact that they were recent made me think I was catching on to something. I wasn't sure what to do, so I actually called my wife's stepbrother. We were closer than people might think. We hung out together at least 4 nights a week, sometimes staying up until 3 in the morning filming ghost hunting videos. I confessed to him what was going on, and it was hard. I had to make him promise not to tell my wife and really honestly give me his best advice, and that was to leave her. He jumped to that decision awfully fast. I asked him why he thought that so easily, and he told me that my wife had cheated on every single man she ever dated. I said a curse word when I heard him tell me that. He said he never told me because he thought every person deserves a chance to start over new. I really wish I would have asked him early on about his sister's past. Maybe he would have told me if I asked, but I wouldn't know now. So I decided to confront her about it to see what she had to say, but be prepared to divorce because something was definitely up. I waited until she was done working one day, and we were almost done with dinner. She almost choked on her last bite. When I asked point blank if she was cheating on me, she immediately turned red and asked why I thought that. I told her it was because she deleted 2 security videos. She looked confused, but it was definitely acting. I knew my wife for 10 years at this point. I wasn't stupid. I asked her if I could see her phone, and that was not what she wanted to hear. She was in the middle of telling me she didn't have time to cheat, but that's not what I asked. I knew she was working while she cheated, probably with the same customer both times. That's a close visit for any regular customer. I was trying not to give this information too fast, but I couldn't resist, so I told her. I checked the financial logs too. This was a little more foreign to me, but I thought the number of customers she had on the mystery days didn't really match how much money she made. So one of the customers she had logged on those days was probably her AP. She did not like this conversation and how much thought I already put into this. I asked her again for her phone. She looked like she was going to throw up, and she actually did. I felt bad, but I also felt convinced I was right about the whole thing. If that was the case, she deserved to barf. While she was doing that, I grabbed her phone out of her back pocket and found tons of texts to one Sarah. I didn't know if that was a code name or what, but I took screenshots and sent them to myself before my wife stopped throwing up long enough to charge at me. She threw up on her phone while it was in my hands, and I ran outside to rinse my hands off with the hose. I told her I saw enough to know she cheated on me and I wouldn't stand for it. I grabbed my emergency departure bag and went to her stepbrother's house. I slept on the couch while I filed for divorce, hoping they would make her move. But the house was in her name, so I was the one that had to find a place to live since she was the breadwinner. I sued her for alimony because of her infidelity, and it was actually approved. I bought my own place. Even though it was a part of another house, it was still property I would own after I paid off the mortgage, so I was happy. My ex was not happy. She spent a ton of money on a lawyer, but it didn't make a difference. She got to keep the house, so I thought she should be happy. Once word got out about this, I'm not sure how it did. Her business lost a lot of customers. I didn't go around telling people, but karma took place anyway. The fact that she lost a lot of customers meant she did struggle to pay rent for a while. I heard she only dated AP a month before she was dumped because AP was scared she would do the same thing she did to me. To them, owning a massage parlor is a privilege and a duty. People are trusting you with their bodies, and it takes a lot for some people to even relax. The fact that she did this is very unsettling. Since then, I've managed to grow my ghost hunting YouTube channel and have a monthly income from that, along with a side job I started with my best friend and ex's stepbrother. I have no idea how my ex is going to make do in life, but it doesn't really concern me. I hope this tale inspires people to remain loyal and respectable.